for us to remove the value, for us to remove A. So allow me to welcome the other person. To Jane, let us continue. So our argument was you have that equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0. So we want this equation to be, we want to solve this equation by completing the square method. What you're supposed to do by completing the square method is make the first value, that is the number before x, to be 1. And to do that, you divide this one by a, divide this one by a, and also divide this one by a. So we are going to have sorry, I was doing something. So when you divide this one by a, the first a will cancel and you'll be left with x squared plus b over a x plus c over a is equals to 0, is equals to 0. So by that you can solve now by using the square method, completing the square method, where we want this one to be the form of a plus x, or x plus a number, a plus b squared. So we are going now to have x plus the second number, which is b over 2 squared. And now our b in this case, we are going to take the whole of this in consideration. I'm going to take the whole of that into consideration. So instead of having just b over 2, we are going to have b over a divided by 2. We're having b over 2a. b over 2a. Then we square that minus b over 2a into bracket squared plus c over a is equals to 0. That is for that. We equate that one to 0. You're going now to have x plus b over 2a squared is the same as, you take this one to the other side of equal sign, you're going to have b over 2a squared, the whole of this one squared, minus c over a. c over a. Now, this one can be written as x plus b over 2a squared is equals to, which is squared, is equals to b squared over 4a in this case 4a because we square 2a minus 4a minus c over a. Now we can now divide or make the division sign for this one to be over 4a. Now for that to be, you're going to have x plus, so this is a squared, b over 2a squared is the same as b squared minus 4ac divided by 4 A squared. 4ac divided by 4a squared. So you can now remove the square root sign by finding the square root of both sides. So you're going to have x plus b over 2a is going to be equal to square root. And when you find the square root of a number, you're going to have two things, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac. And when you find the square root of 4a squared, you're going to have 2a. So you can see 2a is b over 2a is equals to plus or minus. So you can take this one because you want to get the values of x. You can take the values of b2 over 2a in the other side of the equal sign. So when you take this one the other side of the equal sign, you are going to have x is equals to, this is plus, so it's going to be minus b over 2a plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. 2a is common for the base, so allow me to have some space, small space here. 2a is common for the base, so you can combine that 2a. So your problem would be x is equals to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by, remember minus b is divided by 2a, so the division sign or the over sign will be from minus b divided by 2a. And this one is now our quadratic equation. This is our quadratic equation from the proof. Now, if I take you back to the book, we have proved that one, and the end of the day, this equation, our a initially was 1. You see, we have 1 here. So after you prove that this way, you can substitute that number in front of x with a. So when you substitute, whenever you have this one or this number by a, you are going to have x is equals to minus b plus or minus, we have an a before c and 2a. That's now the activity that's telling you, change the proof to prove the quadratic equation for a squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0. Now, whatever we prove is not this, but we proved this one. Remember, this is the proof of equation of this form, x squared plus bx plus c. We have an a, but in this case a is 1. We can be having problem, and using this problem, we can now come up with a way we are going to get the quadratic equation from the problem provided. Now, let's look at the example in the next page. I'm using your book, that is page 120. Now, as you can remember from the circle properties, we learned that the intersecting chord, when they intersect inside the circle, the product 3 multiplied by 4, the product of chord AB, let's call this 3, the chord 3 and 4 as AB. So, and center of the circle is O. We learned that A, that is A to O. Allow me to draw this one in the blank space so that I can explain better, which is 3, 4, and x plus 2. I'm going to share that one in the blank space where you have this one. So allow me to lap this to avoid, to make it clear. So in this problem that I want us to look here is a problem that you're given to form an equation. Then after forming the equation, we are expected to solve that equation. So I'm going to have this circle here, the circle of that form. So I'm going now to use black, so I may be having a line from running from that place to this place. and another line from this place to this place. That's what we have in the example in the book. So and we know, like, we can call this point A. We can call this point A. That is point A. And call the other one point B. That's point B. And call this point C. Point C is there. And call this one point D. Point D is there. So this line, this circle, is supposed to be intersecting somewhere at point 0. So at the center of the circle, we are going to have 0. And we know from that book or from that example, this place is supposed to be having x. Now, sorry, let me use a different color for this value so that we differentiate from points. So that one is x. Then from the other side down, having x plus 2, x plus 2. Then the other side you're having 3. And the other part in the top you're having 4. Remember I said, if you have this chord that intersect at the center of the circle, AO multiplied by OB is the same as CO multiplied by CD. Remember, this is for the sake if they intersect inside the circle. So we can have this expression. We can say AO multiplied by OB is the same as CO plus OD. Down OA or AO is 3. We are going to have 3 multiplied by OB is 4 is the same as CO, which is x, multiplied by OD, x plus 2. X plus 2. Now, this is going to be 12 is equals to, open this bracket, and I said if you have a number outside the bracket, it multiplies each number inside the bracket, so you're going to have x squared plus 2x. We want this one to be a quadratic equation, so we must equate it to 0. And this can be possible when you take 12 the other side of the equal sign. You take this 12 the other side of the equal sign. So you'll be having your equation as x squared plus 2x. 12 was positive, so here it's going to be negative 12 is equals to 0. So from that equation, we have formed, the first step, we have formed a quadratic equation. We have formed a quadratic equation where we have A to be equals to 1, B is equals to 2, and C is equals to negative 12. Now, the point now reaches that you are supposed to decide which method are you going to use. Which method are you going to use? Is there any number that you multiply to get negative 12, and when you get you add to get negative 2? Definitely, there is no such number. So we are going to use the quadratic formula that is, x is equals to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. We are going now to use here. I know in this case a is 1, b is 2, and c is negative 12. So from that, allow me to use this space here behind. So from here, so you can substitute. You're going to have x is the same as b is 2. So negative b it will be negative 2. Negative b is going to be negative 2. So plus or minus square root of b squared. B squared, you're going to have 4 because it's 2 squared minus 4ac. A is equals to 1. C is equals to negative 12. So when you have 4 multiplied by a multiplied by negative 12, you're going to have 48, negative 48. because C is negative. So when you multiply a number by a negative, you're going to have negative. So you're going to have negative 48. Divide by that by 2 because our A is 1. Divide by 2 because our A is 1. Instead of writing 2A or 2, 1, write 2. So 4 minus 48, we're going to have 52. So our X is the same as negative 2 plus or minus square root of 52 divided by 2. So when you solve that using your calculator, you're going to have two values of X. One is going to be a negative, and the other one is going to be a positive. So when we resolve this one. So that one, in case that you're given a problem like this, you're supposed to resolve first and come up with the quadratic formula. I can assure you, before you reach here, you'll be now earning yourself a couple of, like you'll be having like 3 marks so far. So in solving, maybe by this point, you'll be having your 2 marks. And the end of the equation, maybe you'll be earning 5 marks. So we must know how to form an equation from a given statement and also to solve that problem using the quadratic formula. And using the quadratic formula, we said yesterday, for like those one who missed that one, if you are given an equation, you're told to solve the quadratic equation, and you're told like give it into a certain decimal places or significant figure. Remember we said when you're given these two terms, obvious or usually use the quadratic formula. Otherwise, you can choose what you want to use. You can use factorization method, or you can use computing the square method. But when you're given these two things, you're told to give your answer into two decimal places or in a certain significant figure, always use quadratic formula, that is minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So let's look another example. So hoping you guys don't have another class right now, so that we can do another one example. So you can do, not this one you already done.
Lost
Yes,
now.
you're having another class. So if you're having another class, let's add there. I don't want to interrupt with your classes. So Muna, are you having another class?
Yeah, I have physics.
So that class will meet.
Huh?
Yes.
Huh?
Let's break. You go to physics. We don't want to take much time for physics. And I'm going to start the class because I've already recorded.